We're all single when we are young in the early part. Some of us are going to be single in the latter part of our life because of perhaps the death of a spouse. And some of us are going to be single in the middle part of life because of death or perhaps because of a divorce. But some are also going to be single all of their lives. But our culture seems to place a stigma on that singleness. We place a premium on being paired up and coupled in that way. So many popular songs are about finding love. How many movies have you watched where the plot line is about somebody's life who is just stagnant and incomplete, but then the stars align and they find that special person. They have to climb mountains and swim oceans, but they finally get together and then they are whole and they feel good about themselves then. How many other movies have you seen where it has all these high school kids in the gym at school for prom or some kind of homecoming dance, and you got all the popular kids and they have a date and suddenly they break out into choreographed dance. They're having the time of their lives. And then you got the single kids who are unpopular and they're by themselves and they're lined up against the wall milling around the punch bowl. So the message that we get is that if you are single, you are not complete. If you are paired up with somebody, then you are. We hear that message over and over again, that if we don't have an other half, that we are not whole. But I want to let you know today that the Bible does not teach that. The Bible doesn't promote that message at all. And so we're going to look at what Paul has to say in 1 Corinthians 7 and draw out some nuggets of truth that he tells us about those seasons of being single in our life. And here's the first one. He says that being single is a gift. So rather than thinking of singleness as a curse or deficient or second rate, see singleness for the gift that the Lord tells us it is. Here's what we read in 1 Corinthians 7, verse 7. Paul says, I wish that all of you were as I am. And what he's talking about there is being single. He's saying, I am single, and I wish all of you were the same way. But, he continues, each of you has your own gift from God. One has this gift, another has that. So to the unmarried and the widows, I say, it is good for them to stay unmarried as I do. So do you hear what he's saying there? He's saying, I'm single. I wish all of you were as well. And he calls it a gift. Now, when I was in my younger years of ministry, I understood this to mean a gift, kind of like being a spiritual gift. You know, the Bible mentions a list of spiritual gifts, things like mercy and administration, and it's like God gifts you in that way. And like God would gift some people with this gift of singleness, that they just have no desire to be paired up, to be married. They're happy being celibate. I understood it in that way. I've come to understand that's not exactly what this means. There could be a part of that. But what he's saying is that singleness is the gift. That if you are single, that is the gift that you have. It's something good that God has provided for you. Now, some people might say, well, that's a gift I don't want. You might look at that more like a white elephant gift at a Christmas party. Like you got the thing that nobody wanted, and so now you're trying to trade with somebody across the room. I'm going to figure out how to get rid of this one. But Paul says being free from a spouse is a gift. And so I want us to take a look at some more of this. So that's the first nugget of truth we gather out of that being single is a gift. But the second nugget is you don't have to accept the gift. There's a choice in this. So Paul says, I wish you were single like me, but you don't have to be. Because he goes on here to say that I'm not giving you a command from the Lord that you should be single. He says, I'm just giving you some of my wisdom from my own experience in life. So in verse 25, this is what he has to talk about. He says, now about virgins. Now, what he means is single. Virgin was a term that they usually applied to just the women of the day, but if you were a virgin, you were single. I know in our culture today that's not necessarily the case. There are a lot of single women who are not virgins because of the society that we live in, but it was a premium in that first century. In fact, if a woman was not a virgin, it was almost impossible for her to get married because man would not marry a woman who was not a virgin. And so he says, now about virgins, about single people, I have no command from the Lord. See? This is not a command from the Lord, but I give a judgment as one who by the Lord's mercy is trustworthy. So he's saying this is my view of things. Because of the present crisis, I think that it's good for a man to remain as he is. Are you pledged to be married to a woman? Well, don't seek to be released. Are you free from such a commitment? Then don't look for a wife. But if you do marry, you have not sinned. And if a virgin marries, she has not sinned. So Paul says, not a command from God. I'm just giving you my wisdom of what I see in things. God's Spirit is in me. I take a look around, and this is what I see. Because of the present crisis that they were facing, just if you're single and you're not pledged to be married, he says, I think you're better off to stay that way. Not a command from God. I'm not telling you that's what you have to do. I'm not saying God says that's what you're supposed to do. He says, I'm just saying this is what I believe would be best. If you're single, just stay that way. Now, the present crisis that he speaks of there, he doesn't tell us what that is. But knowing history, it's probably the persecution that Christians were facing at that time. The church was kind of brand new, and the Christians were being persecuted by Rome. Like Rome, the powerhouse of the day, was trying to stomp out Christianity. And even the Jews of the day were trying to stomp out Christianity. And so they're just taking persecution from all sides. And he's saying, like, there's enough trouble in all of that. Why would you want to add the trouble of being married on top of all of that? So he said, life is hard. We're in a really hard situation right now. Imagine how much harder it would be if you were married. Because he says, right now, if you're single, you're being persecuted as a Christian, your job is in danger. Like if you have an employer who doesn't favor Christianity and Jesus, then a lot of employers were getting rid of their employees if they were Christians. And so he says, that's hard enough if you're single. Imagine if you're married and have a family. Just the extra stress that's going to add to that, because now you're responsible for your wife and your kids, or your husband and your kids. And he says, also, your life is in danger. A lot of Christians were being killed and tortured, fed to the lions, kind of a thing. Hard enough if you're single. Add marriage to that. You've got this family you're responsible for. It just makes everything so much harder. So he says, I wish that everybody were as I am, single. But if you do marry, it's not a sin. You can. I'm just giving you my wisdom. So he says you have a choice. This isn't a command, just my advice. And he gives two reasons for this advice. The first one is because marriage is challenging. So just in general, setting the persecution aside, he just says marriage is challenging. Verse 28, he says, those who marry will face many troubles in this life, and I want to spare you this. He says, I just want to tell you that if you get married, you might have this Pollyanna view of what it's going to be like. You're in love, you're having all these feelings, butterflies in your stomach, and you think that being paired up with this person, spending the rest of your life, I can't wait to spend the rest of my life with you. He says, you're going to have trouble. Just be aware of that. And all the married people said, yeah. Like every married person said that. Sitting right next to your spouse said that. Because we know, don't we? Marriage is just challenging. Living with a spouse causes difficulties. It's just difficult to live with someone and be married to someone. We have different priorities, different temperaments, different hobbies, different sleep cycles, different preferences for the thermostat in the house. And so if you're single, you just do all of that the way that you want it to do, and nobody says anything otherwise. But if you're married, it just brings those challenges along with it. Sherry and I went last night to the concert that Myers Leonard did. How many of you went? I saw a number of church people there. Sherry and I went, and so you know that all the advertisement was gates were going to open at 6:30, Myers would start singing what I read was somewhere around 8 o'clock, which I figured meant 8:30, which was pretty close to right. And so I didn't want to get there until, maybe 10 till 8. Like, I don't want to go just sit there in the bugs, waiting. Like, let me just get there at 10 minutes till 8. We'll get us a sandwich to eat. We'll listen to a little bit of music. We'll go home. Sherry wants to be there at, gates open at 6:30. She wants to be there at like 5:30. That might be an exaggeration, but nonetheless. So maybe a little bit of an argument broke out. Not really sure about that. Kind of quiet. Wasn't like we were yelling at each other, but we just had a difference of opinion about how this ought to go. So she's asking me, well, what time do you want to leave? And I'm going, in my mind, I'm thinking, well, I don't really want to leave here until probably like 7:45. But I know she wants to leave at 6:30, so what am I supposed to say? So I don't really give her an answer. So we're just kind of around the house, getting ready, and she's doing her hair, and I'm already ready because my hair didn't take very long. I'm just sitting there watching some golf on TV while she's getting ready, and so it gets along a little bit later. I don't remember exactly what time it was, but way too early to be leaving the house. And so I said, well, I'm not ready to go yet, but I'll go ahead and get things ready so that when we're ready to go, we can go. And Sherry's in the back, and I can hear her talking. So all of you who are sitting back there near her and can hear her, ignore what she has to say. So in my mind, what that meant was, okay, I'm going to go ahead because you're supposed to take chairs with you. So I'm going to get the chairs in the car. I'm going to get my shoes on. I'm going to be ready to go when the time comes to go, but I'm not ready to go yet. We'll just have everything ready, and that way when we're ready to go, we'll go. In her mind, what that meant was, as soon as I get the chairs in the car, we're going to leave. So we go out to the garage, and I put the chairs in the car and close the trunk, and I go back in the house, and like I've got out a golf club, and I'm in the house like doing this, and I'm thinking, where'd she go? I look around the house a little bit. I don't see her anywhere. Like, I don't know. She's outside. I don't know what she's doing. Pretty soon, I hear the door open to the garage, and she goes, where are you? I said, I'm in here. I'm putting the golf club away. And she says, I'm sitting out in the car waiting on you. She thought we were going. She'd been sitting in the car for 10 minutes. She says, I'm out there sweating up. You're not here. So like, fine, I'm ready to go. So we get in the car and we ride in silence all the way to the concert because I know she's not happy. Marriage is trouble. Paul says, I wish that you were all single like me. Last night I was feeling that way. That's a joke. It's a joke. I can't hear what you're saying, so only those people are laughing. But that's what marriage brings, Paul talks about. He just says that it is a challenge to be married. And so, guys, when you're single, you get out of bed in the morning, you go to school, you go to work, you come home that night, you crawl into a bed that has been left unmade all day. And so, the blankets are everywhere, sheets are all wrapped up, and you just crawl in. You don't care. But then you get married. And all of a sudden, not only does the bed have to be made, but you have to have 38 throw pillows on there. And I don't know why they call them throw pillows, because you can't throw them. They have to be placed just so. And so you got to have that stuff in place. So you have to learn things like what a duvet is when you're married. Like, I'd never heard the word duvet till I got married. Some of you guys are still thinking, I don't know what that is either. Yeah. I'll teach you, okay? Because I know now. And if you're single, guys, you used to be able to come home from work and you'd turn on the TV and you'd watch football. And now you have to watch Hallmark when you're married. And ladies, when you were single, you could come home from school, from work, you could grab something quick to eat and then go out with friends. And then you get married and now you're cooking dinner. And no matter how good your lasagna is, it's not as good as his mom's. You have trouble in marriage like that. And you're going to want to talk about your day. And he's going to want to watch football. And you ask how long it's going to be before the game is over, and he's going to tell you 2 minutes. And it's true that there's 2 minutes on the clock. What he doesn't tell you is that 2 minutes takes 2 hours. There are challenges like that in a marriage. And so it's not just these stereotypical aggravating things like that. When you are married, everything your spouse do impacts you. Everything your spouse does impacts you. And so, guys, everything your wife does impacts you. Ladies, everything your husband does impacts you. And so you've got to figure out how to operate all of this together. And so now you have somebody that you care about. And so you do love them. And so now every trial that they have in life, every tough thing they face impacts you. They go to the hospital, it impacts you. They're in an accident, it impacts you. They want to be at the concert at 5:30, it impacts you. Because even though that's not what you want, you still want for them what they want. And now you're torn within you. And so marriage creates these kinds of upending spots in life. But then he gives us another reason that being single is a gift. He said it allows us undivided devotion to the Lord. So when you are single, you don't have to think about anything that somebody else wants. So that's kind of the first thing we just talked about. Like temperature of the house, it can be what you want. Leave when you want, get up when you want, go to bed when you want, watch whatever show you want, all those kinds of things. But also just your engagement and your devotion to the Lord is not dependent on somebody else. So look at verse 32. He says, I would like you to be free from concern. An unmarried man is concerned about the Lord's affairs, how he can please the Lord. But a married man is concerned about the affairs of this world, how he can please his wife. Even though you don't want to be at the concert that early, you're still thinking about that. I really did. Even though we went later, I still thought about it. Didn't change what I did, but I thought about it. I felt bad about it. So he says his interests are divided. An unmarried woman or virgin is concerned about the Lord's affairs. Her aim is to be devoted to the Lord in both body and spirit. But a married woman is concerned about the affairs of this world, how she can please her husband. And he say, I'm saying this for your own good, not to restrict you, but that you may live in a right way in undivided devotion to the Lord. So, when you're single, you have a freedom that married people don't have, a freedom dating people don't have. When you're single, your devotion can be wholehearted, and it doesn't have to be scattered. Your whole life can be aimed at pleasing the Lord and following the path that He lays out in front of you, not having to think about, how does this impact my spouse? And would I want what my spouse wants? Dating can be great, but there are distractions in dating. So when we're dating, all you think about is that person. And so some of you here today who are married, you've been listening to everything that I've been saying, and then others of you are dating. And you're not listening to everything that I say because you're sitting next to somebody, and while we were singing early in the service, you were thinking, should I sing or will that be weird? And then we're praying, and you're looking down, and you're looking at his shoes to see if he dresses well. There's this divided attention that comes with that. When I was in high school, the girl that I was dating would come to church with me on Sunday night. She went to another church on Sunday morning. Sunday night, she would come to my church. And back in the day, we sang with hymn books in the old church. So, turn to page 368, and you hold the book. And so we're standing next to each other singing, and we're both holding the book, but it's like we're holding hands under the book. And we thought everybody else was too stupid to know what we were doing. And so while we're singing, that's what we're thinking about. When you're dating, you're distracted like that. And that's why the Puritans in early America would separate the men from the women for worship. They had 2 doors on the outside of the building, and the women would go in one door and the men would go in the other door, and the women would all sit on that side and the men would all sit on that side, because they knew it was hard for a man to worship the Lord when he was sitting next to a woman that smelled good. And so it's distracting in that way. So God has given the gift of singleness so that there is an undivided, undistracted devotion to him. There are benefits to that season and freedom of time. Now, not only does dating divide our devotion to God, but so does marriage, and so do kids. So for those of you who are now married and have kids, do you remember what it was like when you were single and your friends would call you and say, hey, let's go do this thing? Whatever it was they were inviting you to go do. And you'd say, yeah, that sounds great. When are we going to do that? Right now. Okay, I'm in. And then you got married. And then your friends would call you, especially this is true after you have kids. Your friends call you and say, hey, we're going to go do this. You want to come go with us? And you're like, yeah, that sounds great. When are we going to do that? Right now. Well, the kids are about ready to go down for a nap. And then they're going to want to eat after they get up from that. And then I promised to take them to the park. And so that pretty much goes today. When's the next time you're going to go? Could we get this on our calendar? Maybe next month sometime we could make that happen. There's just all of that goes along with marriage and kids. Kids change life. Marriage changes life. And so when you're married with kids, you get home from work and you have to fix dinner and clean the house and make sure the kids get their homework done and change the diapers and fix the water heater and play Candyland and give baths, and you have to put them in their pajamas and pick up the toys and get the kids in bed, and then you have to get them a drink of water and put them back in bed, and then you have to get them another drink of water and put them back in bed again. And by the time this is all done, it's 11 o'clock and you're exhausted and there's no time for anything else. Single people, look around the room at the married people and look at how tired they are. Look at the bags under their eyes. Now, there are great benefits to being married and having kids. Those benefits are called grandkids. I know I'm making a lot of jokes about this today, which I enjoy, and thank you for laughing. There are great benefits to being married. Love being married. I loved being a dad. And I love being a hero. That was Grandpa, for those of you who don't know. But being single opens all of these doors that married people don't have. We all tend to look at another season of life and amplify its benefits and downplay its challenges. And we tend to look at our own season of life and downplay its benefits and amplify its challenges. Each season has benefits. If you are single, don't miss yours. Don't always be looking for something else, someone else, to feel whole and complete. Enjoy what you have at this stage in your life. And one of the greatest benefits of being single is the opportunity for an undivided devotion to God. The happiest single people I know are the ones who have figured this out. They see that being single is a gift that provides freedom that couples don't have. So use your freedom to serve the Lord. Don't waste your time just scrolling through social media, looking at everybody else who's paired up and thinking, I wish I had their life. Don't let that dominate you. If you're single, you can do what married people, especially what married people with kids, can't do. You can make decisions for yourself that you don't have to agree on with a spouse. So you can do things like go on a missions trip without getting permission from your spouse. Without your spouse saying, how much is that going to cost? Without your spouse saying, well, if you're gone for a week, how am I going to take care of the kids and get them to school and get them fed and get to work? Like, I can't do that without you. You can get involved in student ministry and pour your life into a group of middle schoolers or high schoolers, guiding their faith through the process of growing up. And you can have them over to your house without your spouse saying, I don't want a bunch of kids in the house. What if they tear something up? You can take them out to Dairy Queen and treat all of them without your spouse saying, how much money did you spend on those kids? You just have a freedom that married people don't have. Wonderful benefits to being married and having a family. There are also wonderful benefits to being single. If you are married, enjoy the benefits that you have. But if you are single, enjoy the benefits that you have. I read about a single college girl who learned of some kids in Africa who had no home and no parents. There was a family that was willing to take these kids in, but their home was too small for all the kids to join them. And so this girl used the freedom that she had as a single girl, gathered some of her friends up, made and sold a bunch of bracelets to raise money so that the family that would take these kids in could build an addition onto their house and take these kids into their own home. That's using the benefit that you have for a devotion to the Lord. I read about a single man who owned a really successful business, so successful that he made a lot of money, and it didn't require a lot of his time to make it happen. Like, he had it all set up so other people were making all the wheels turn. He had a lot of freedom in his life. And so what he did was start a second business, and he put his time into that, and all the money, 100% of the profit from that business, he used for missions around the world. When you're single, you have an opportunity that married people don't have. Use what you have. There are blessings to being married and having kids. There are blessings to being single. And Paul says it is a gift. Don't waste it. So for those of you who are single, how can you be undividedly devoted to the Lord? Let's pray. Father in heaven, for most of us, there is no doubt a longing to have someone to share our life with. You created Adam and Eve to be together, and marriage is a gift. But I pray today for those who are single, that they would hear the words of Paul. Being single is also a gift. It's a good gift that allows freedoms and an opportunity for our hearts to be fully devoted toward you. So I pray they would seize that gift and use it to your honor. In Christ's name, amen.